right, welcome to session 3 of the Part 4 Masterclass series that's hosted by Harris Seeds and Brigge. I just want to give a special thank you to Kendall and Harris Seeds for helping organize this event, making it come possible to you guys, and helping us pull together all the guest speakers, which, based on the feedback that you guys have, has been somewhat valuable, which we hope and we know that this one will be just as valuable. And so thanks again for everybody who's attended. And we look forward to this session with you right now, but also next and last session on next Tuesday. So today's guest is Brian Morgan from Think Deeply, Write Clearly. And so Brian and I actually know each other. We are great friends, and he's an amazing writer, coach, and just human being. And so it's really a treat for me to get to bring him on, but I think the value really is in your hands because of the excellent insights he's going to be able to provide you today. So without further ado, Brian Morgan, welcome to the Masterclass series.
Thank you, bud. I appreciate, thank you so much to you for this opportunity. Thank you to, there's 40 people here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us. And of course, Kendall and Harris Seeds, thank you for all of your work, but really appreciate that everybody took the time to be here today. Really, thank you very much.
Yeah. So before we dive in, I just a few housekeeping items for you guys. There's a Q&A session that we'll have throughout, so make sure to chat in your questions to that. You may chat in your questions to the chat box as well. The other attendees might not be able to see what you're chatting in, so therefore I will facilitate the comment or the question, so we'll make sure that we get those covered. Brian does have a presentation that he's going to walk you through, but we'll have kind of a conversation like the last two. And if the question or whatever kind of relates to where we're at, we'll jump in and address that question and then handle the rest of the questions we don't get through at the end of this session. Go ahead, and Brian, if you want to present something.
Okay. Yeah. Are we starting? We want to wait till 7 or we go ahead?
Yeah, we can get started. People can kind of jump in at 7 and I'm sure they'll come back and watch it. So.
All right. Sorry for having the wrong thing up here. Let me try that again. Get that. False start, everybody. Here we go. And view, present, and all right. Well, you can't present, view, and share the screen, everybody, just in case you'll need that piece of information at some point. Okay. It's view, present. Awesome. So in very typical me fashion, Kendall and Troy asked for, the slides last night, and I said, sure, here they are. And I do this a lot, and I've, changed some for farmers. And then unexpectedly, I ended up in Atlantic City. Forgive, I'm in a hotel room, which is probably less appealing than maybe my home office or something. But one thing that I wanted to start with, because I think it's everything. It's everything to me right now, at any rate. We're talking about why buyers buy. That's and that, to me, if you solve that, if you really solve that, you've got a business forever. And we've been very lucky. We've only had Think Deeply for 18 months, and we've been extremely lucky in terms of how this philosophy has served us. And I know Troy's probably going to reflect on that maybe a little bit later on. But this is where I want to start, because it's really the backbone of everything. Outside my window over here, true story, Troy didn't know I was going to do this. Outside my window over here is the ocean, and it's Atlantic City. There's casinos, right, and there's people rushing, right? They rush it's rushing. Everybody is rushing, and then they get to the sand as they head toward the beach. So they rush up until they hit the beach, and then they get on the beach, and then they start walking really slowly toward the water. And then everybody does the same thing. They take out a phone, or they don't. They just sit and stand and look at the ocean for minutes. For minutes, they do this. And it's almost this, and I've been thinking, like, all I want to do, because I don't actually want to stop anyone's meditation when they're doing that, but all I want to do, staring from my window up here, is say, what are you thinking about? what is going on in your brain staring at the ocean? Why is it that we find this fascinating? And I've been sort of fantasizing about what some of these conversations would be like if I were to have any of them. And I think someone might say, you know, I think about the fact that this will be here 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years after I'm gone. I think about that a lot when I stand here. I think some people would say, makes me think I'm married to the wrong person. I think some people would say, it makes me think that the frustration I have with my kids is not as big as I thought it was 44 seconds ago. But whatever it is, you get moved into this thoughtful space. And what I find over and over, and just think about, just for a moment, put yourself in that position. You're in a spot right now to make a friend. And we get walled up from that so much in our world. Somebody is selling me something. Somebody is tricking me. Someone is manipulating. And you're right. You're right. That's exactly what's happening. That's exactly what people have been taught to do. But staring at the ocean, you get into this thoughtful space. And if somebody were to be lucky enough to catch you at that moment and say, Troy, what are you thinking about? And Troy says, honestly, I'm thinking about, I only got 50 more years before I don't see this anymore. You're in a moment to make a friend. And the more I think about business, the more I think about anything that we do, the thing that we miss we miss this, like we miss, I don't know how we missed it. It's so obvious, but we miss it. If you jump back in time 100,000 years ago, a bunch of Neanderthals were coming at us, and we had to choose what we were going to do, right? Like a bunch of and one-on-one, we were going to lose that battle. They were bigger than us. They were stronger than us. One-on-one, we were going to lose that battle. So we knew we had to stick together. And I said, Troy, what do you think we should do? And you said, go left. And you said, what do you think you should do? And I said, I think we should go right. And in the 5 seconds that we had to make a choice, we said, well, over there, there's cliffs. Over there, there's trees. Which one do you think is better? And we made a choice. And somehow it's 2021 and we made it. And we made it for 2 reasons. Number one, we could language things that Neanderthals could not do. We could communicate better. But we were not necessarily smarter, but we had better communication. And we could therefore team together. And in business training, there are 10,000 lies. You got to sell a pain point. You got to do your margins, and they're really going to buy if you do this, and they're really going to buy. But human beings do things only one way. Go left, go right, because somebody has made an argument that that's the best way that we can team together for ourselves, as a group, as people who want to come together and support each other and team up together. And we have missed that in 1,000 different ways. And that is so expensive in business. It's so expensive when we miss that. And so I didn't plan on starting with the water today. I have my little show here that we do, right? But I was so taken by that today, just watching people, and knowing that they were sitting there staring at the vastness of everything. And in that space, and I was like, We never lose this. We never lose this. And I think in marketing and in messaging businesses, and we're going to talk about how to apply this to farms here in a second. Troy and I have been talking about this for a while. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is, you can trust me to be on your team. That's what we want to say to the buyer. Why do buyers buy? Because they trust us to be on their team. When they say, I want to go left, you say, why? And they say, well, because your food is healthier if it comes from a farm. I say, because I want to support the local economy. They say, because the soil quality from a local farm is better than a commercial farm, or whatever they say. But in essence, they're saying, you make me better and I make you better. Let's find a partnership and let's move forward. Which means every lie we get told about business has now been exposed. You need Facebook ads. I mean, maybe you do, but they got to say the right stuff. You need pixels and funnels. Well, maybe you do, but they got to say the right stuff. And the thing that we have missed is the right stuff is, this is how I partner with you. And how do we language that so that people say somebody is serving me with their business, not punishing me, not manipulating me, not. And what you find is that when people trust you, you can get the price point you want, you can get the margins you want, you get the credibility you want, and you don't have to divorce yourself from your soul to get it. Now, we're going to talk a lot about social media. Let's talk about it. I'm going to give you the 30 seconds now, and then we'll jump down into the presentation. Social media, many of you probably don't use because it is vapid. You're right. You're right. It's a disaster, right? If you went on any social media, including LinkedIn, which is one that I happen to like a lot, it would be 95% disaster. It would be people trying to be Kardashians. It would be people trying to get attention for themselves. It would be people, and you probably rightfully say, well, I don't want to do that. You're right. I don't either. And neither does Troy. And in fact, what you're going to find out is that the people who are most successful say, let me be on your team. And this is why I am credible on your team. There is so much wasted space trying to get attention. So social media has this terrible, reputation, rightfully so. But let's look at what it does give. It gives you space to make an argument. Let's go left, let's go right. It gives you space to make that argument in a way that people feel close to you. And it's free. Folks, it's free. Getting in front of even 100 or 300 or 1,000 people as little as 20 years ago would have cost you a lot of money. This is free. Which means if we do this right, you can do all the things that human beings want to do. You can prove that you are a trustworthy team member to your buyer if we do this right, and I think we do. And so we're going to take you through that tonight. If you do this right, you get that for free. You get that opportunity, but we have to use it right. We have to message it right. And do people give you terrible advice about marketing? All day long, all day long. And so this is different advice in all likelihood that you're going to normally hear. And I will throw up our arguments against anybody else's all day long, because humans are humans are humans, and information only moves one way. And it's this way. This is why. When you get control of this, you have economic control over your business. I guarantee it, because this is what humans do. So let's get into it. That was a long time on that picture. All right. Oh, why buyers buy? Okay. think for a second. I was going to make fun of this email because like these things drive me bonkers. So let's change the energy for a second. I'm going to dive back in. This type of thing drives me nuts, right? Because this is what you get taught. This is insane. These things, you missed out, but there's hope, right? Oh my God, stop! Like I unsubscribe, right? And I know they teach us this. I know they did. Like Robert Kiyosaki was like, I mean, the guy's got money. He could hire anyone that he wants. He hired a marketing director who wrote this. Disaster. Why? Because it's what gets taught, and it's awful. And I unsubscribed, and Troy unsubscribes, and half of you unsubscribe, and we don't have the relationship. Because does it feel like you're on the team? No, it does not. It feels like he is manipulating you. It feels like he's taking advantage of you. It feels like he's trading on your fear. And you say, I'm out of this relationship, right? And rightfully so. If your husband or wife treated you the same way, you do the same thing. It's wrong. But it's what we get taught. So let's throw it all away. Forget it. We don't do this. We don't need to. They think they need to. We don't need to. Buyers buy on, this is not new, the know, like, and trust factor. That's what they call this, the know, like, and trust factor. Okay. Even Robert Kiyosaki would tell you that. He probably doesn't execute it very well, but he would tell you that. That's not the important question. How is it established? Okay. I won't answer it for you. You answer it for you. Name a person that you trust in your mind right now. Do it. Take 10 seconds. Who do you trust in the world? Answer, and this is important, 1 to 3 reasons. You don't need that many, folks. 1 to 3 reasons. Why that person? Troy, tell us. Who and why?
Yeah, my wife, of
Okay,
course.
of course.
Because we've built that foundation where I know that it exists and it feels real. I am always on the same page as her, which I believe is because we are able to communicate effectively. And I love her. It comes from a place of love.
Awesome. And so when you say communicate effectively, does that mean always agree?
No.
No, you're married. It means probably hardly ever agree. You're married with kids. You're like
We do 4 kids. It's a little bit chaotic once in a while. So.
Right. So let's talk about that. What Troy just told us about his relationship, thank you, Troy, is that you can love somebody and trust them. In fact, they can be your most trustworthy person, even if you do not always agree with them. Which means we do not, right? Let's break this down because this is so important to how we message our businesses. We do not buy somebody's conclusion. We don't. Blueberries are great for you. Nobody cares. We don't buy the conclusion. We buy the process. I still love my wife. She thinks that Kellen should go to bed at 7:30. I think he should go to bed at 8 o'clock, and we have at it, and we disagree, and she wins because she's your wife, and so she will win. And she says, and then you say, well, but what? How did we decide that? On the transparency of the argument, not on the conclusion. So why in God's name do people tell you to market on conclusions? If you do this, you will create an ROI. If you do this, you will be healthier. If you do this, they're marketing on conclusion, but nobody cares about conclusions because we all see it as manipulation. We know that we don't trust people. We know that we don't trust people when they only give us conclusions. We know we very much trust people when we see the transparency of how they got there. I don't have to agree with you that Kellen should go to bed at 8:30, but I do agree that that is a good argument for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love you for the argument, for the way you think, not for the conclusion. Do it the other way, right? Put it the other way. What happens when we say, oh, that's fine, Troy, whatever you want to do. all day. So like, can you give me some support here? Can you right? Like, let's have this out. Like, what do I want? I don't want you to agree. I don't want you to tell me things are good. I don't want you to give me your conclusions of thought. I want the transparency so that we can hash it out like humans. The Neanderthals are coming. We're going right. We're going left. What do you think we should do? I'm in the woods. You're in the woods. How do we handle this? This is parenting. This is also running a business. This is information only moves one way. And this is it. This is the only thing that we do in life is we're constantly at, I have no idea what to do. I have no clue what to do. So Troy, what do you think? I don't know. I think we should go left. Well, why do you think that? Because of this, that, and the other thing. Troy, I disagree. Do I still love you? You bet. Did we disagree and go a different way? You bet. We don't have to have the same conclusion. We have to have transparency of process.
Mm-hmm.
Our marketing sucks. Our business marketing sucks. Because the very thing we want from each other is the very thing we do not have the guts to give. We really, really, really want to say, you missed out. You're in pain. And therefore you, etc. Right? Okay. So, Troy's wife, or anyone who answered this question in their minds, how does trust get established? Two things. Number one, time. Doesn't happen overnight, right? I hope you're learning to trust me, but it is not happening in the first 8 seconds, right? It takes time to earn this. I recognize this, you recognize this, right? So this is what the funnel page people don't understand. You can get someone to transact with you, but you'll never get them to trust you in 30 seconds. Transactions are different than trust. They're still reticent even after they've swiped their darn credit card. The relationship, the long-term relationship to your business is built on trust, not on transactions. Number two, I think Helen should go to bed at 7:30. I think Helen should go to, right? We both process information well, and we trust that we are trustworthy partners in business together. We are trustworthy transferers of information to each other. The businesses that understand over time, I will show you my transparency of process as to why you trust my business, as to why I am trustworthy in business, as to why this business is valuable in the community, as to why that business is forever going to exist. Because human beings, because human beings, because human beings. This is what we do. This is how human beings process information, and everything else is BS. Everything else is just marketing speak. Everything else is some version of manipulation. Credibility is built in the transparency of thinking. If you learn nothing else tonight, that. What does that mean to a farm? A lot, I would think. A lot. Because there's a lot that matters in the farming community that I want to see transparently that I didn't know until Troy told me. I'm 47 years old. Like, there's a lot of valuable stuff that is brought to the world from the farming community that I didn't know until, why? Because my relationship to the farm is not as informed as yours. Is that a problem? Yes. Is that an opportunity? Massive. Huge opportunity, because if you inform me, I will buy from the farmer all day long. All day long. Okay. So we've already been through this. Let's talk about the bias here for a second. I do not care about the Kardashians. I do not they mean nothing to me, right? They probably mean nothing to you. None of us have enough time in the world to care about the Kardashians. And when we think social media, we think that. But let's look at what it actually is. It actually is 200 words of space to make an argument for why, for instance, food that ripens in the ground is more nutritious than food that is trucked to a grocery store, which if you don't put it in those 200 words, we don't see. And then an image or something else to draw attention to it. And I know that some people are going to say, well, I won't get as many views as the Kardashians. True. How many do you need to have a business? If you get that 200-word statement or statements like it in front of just 1,000 people a week, 20 years ago, if you had an opportunity to speak in front of 1,000 people, like right now, we say, oh, that's nothing. The Kardashians have 15 million followers or whatever. If you get that message in front of 1,000 people and you've done it well, and 100 of them are clients, and that's just 1 week, you got a business. And so why don't we do it? Well, because I don't want to go on social media because I don't want to act like an idiot. Good. Don't. Go on social media and talk to the 1,000 people who are ready, who want to hear from you. And then they share your content. And then they say, now you got 2,000 and now you got 10,000. Over time, you are unbeatable because this is how human beings work. Everything else is nonsense. This is how human beings work. And if we don't message it that way, then we're unreliant on tools. We're unreliant on selling tools. We're unreliant on, but if we message it this way, get it in front of 100 people, then get it in front of 1,000 people, then get it in front of 10,000 people, then get it in front of 1 million people. It is over. It is there for you. It is there for you. It is there for you because this is how human beings work. This is how buyers buy. It's how you buy. You know, did you ever buy anything from a Kardashian? They're just famous. That's all they are. But they're certainly not credible. And let's not exchange attention for respect. Everyone on this webinar is worthy of respect. Not everybody has a lot of attention. It's very easy to get attention if people are learning from you and seeing that the transparency of your process is thoughtful. For instance, why is it important that food is nurtured in the ground, not in a grocery store? I'm reading that, and then I'm buying from you. I personally am reading that, and then I personally will buy from you because that matters to me. Nutrition matters to me. That's a good argument. So, okay, the process here that we're going to go through, this was developed. I fell into this. I was the managing editor of New York City's premier planning and environmental firm for 16 years. We did the World Trade Center. We did Moynihan Station. We did every major project in New York for about a generation. And what was happening at that firm was that every person who came in, even if they went to Harvard or Brown or something, they did not come in ready to write at the level of writing that we needed them to, that on the other side of the document, somebody was willing to write a $2 billion check. And that's what we needed every time. And so what we ended up with was, Brian, teach these people who went to Harvard, teach them how to write credibly. So I did. And then we used those techniques to market our own business when we started marketing that business. And then people started to say, how is it that within 6 months of being in business, you've got major government clients, you've got, I think, probably the most important institution during COVID. How did you get those people as clients? Closed when they first called you. The same reason it will work for you, because we showed the transparency of process. That's it. This is how human beings think. Now, we knew that on the reporting side, right? Because we had to get everything funded, and now we knew this on the reporting side, but for some reason it is new in marketing. Let's not have a lengthy discussion about how business schools are ripping people off. But for some reason, credibility is new in marketing. Everything else gets language and marketing, but not credibility. And so we took those principles, we'd applied it to marketing. We put out for free. The only Facebook and other things of ads that I've paid for didn't work. So I was going to say I've never paid for advertising. That's not true. I paid about like $4,000 for advertising and it didn't work. I mean, maybe eventually it will. But where we are right now is done with this system, which you're going to learn right now. And we're going to go through some of the people who've had success here. And this will work for farms too, because human beings, 2 to 3 times a week, do not worry about metrics. Folks, put that on a piece of paper somewhere so that you remember it. Worry nothing about metrics. Metrics mean nothing. Getting in front of 100 people for free is a victory. Getting in front of 1,000 people for free is a beautiful day. You got an award from LinkedIn, you got 57, who cares? Who cares? You got in front of 1,000 people and they all think you're great. That's the only thing that matters. So when we do this, we help people with video. I don't know if people want to talk about that maybe at some point. Everything with posts, everything with photos, grab a little attention for that. And everything is about the transparency of thought. So let's just take 30 seconds for this. And Troy, if you wouldn't mind being the mouthpiece for the group. The top 3 reasons, Troy, for you, let's just say a farm that you know. For everybody else, your farm. The top 3 reasons that somebody would buy from your farm, don't overthink it. The top 3 reasons that somebody would buy from your farm. Take 15 seconds and jot that down. Okay, Troy, give us one. What's the top reason for a farm that you know? What's the number 1 reason that somebody would buy from
it? Soil care. How well they take care of the soil for their products.
Awesome. And why does that matter to the buyer?
They want to know how the food was produced, what went into it, what potentially amendments or whatever were put into it to grow it, and what that matters for the nutrients for the food they're going to eat.
Exactly. So here's what Troy is doing without necessarily realizing this is what he's doing. There is a conclusion. People care about soils. And then there are reasons for this conclusion, which are, well, they want to know about the nutrients in it. They want to know about pesticides or other concerns around it. And so I know a lot of people are thinking, well, if I posted 2 or 3 times a week on social media, I'm going to run out of things to talk about. No, you're not. You can make people care about soil quality. You can make people care about how nutrients go into the soil, how they get absorbed. You can make people care about why you use certain pesticides and not others, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can make people care about any of this. There are thousands of things for us to be writing about all of the time. So let's talk about the sort of default of a credible statement, right? So good soil is good for food. This is a conclusion of information. Now, I don't necessarily know all the metrics behind it, but Troy does. So Troy, why is it that good soil is good for food?
Because it provides the vitality from the plants. And so most often some people can call this voltage. The voltage in the plant life gets translated into the food that's produced, which then gets consumed by us.
Okay. So if we break down what Troy is doing right now, this is a data. This is data. Sometimes it is a story. For instance, I've been watching people go to the Atlantic Ocean all day. That was a story, right? So sometimes we get data from our personal experiences. So there is data and story that is the reason why this is true. And then what he's done is said, this is why it matters to the buyer, which is an important part of this. Why does it matter to the buyer? Because we eat it. Human viability, in part, depends on good soil. And I'm just going to call this Troy Farms, this is why we use only X kinds of pesticides and Y kinds of plants, et cetera, et cetera. You've got 200 words. There's post number 1, right? It's that easy. What is a thing that you think people should know? How is it credible? I think Helen should go to bed at 7:30. I think Helen should go to bed at 8. That's this part. How is the argument for this credible? This is the data. This is the story. Why does it matter to the buyer? You will not see anything here that says, and if you buy by March 5th, you'll get a 15% discount. Because if they trust you, you don't need to offer it. When you don't have language, when you don't have transparency of thought, when you don't have trust, you need to offer 15% off. But when you do, you don't. Because you have trust. Troy would not be married to his wife if she said, it's okay, you can have me at 15% off. It's just not the relationship we want in life. We don't want relationships at a discount. We want the real thing. Get on my team. Human vitality depends on this, and I'm informing you on social media. And it's going to benefit my farm. It's going to benefit you, and that's why we do what we do. No one said anything, and oh, we don't need a webinar for it. We don't need half a dozen things for it. We just need them to know that. Take an easier example here for a second, although the farming community, you guys are probably going crazy with your own thoughts about what you could be writing about right now, which is fantastic. Write them all down. Write them all down. But ask yourself, why is it that you drive the car that you drive? Right? Now, I know that there are 50,000 things in that car. It's got a certain size of trunk. It's got a, one of these like press the button keys, or it doesn't, or it's got power locks, or it doesn't, or, if you're, for me, I wanted something that had a wheel well big enough for snow tires, and something that was 4-wheel drive because we ski a lot. We're on mountains a lot. And so we bought this car to get us to and from a mountain. A Lamborghini wouldn't have done it. Like, just not what we were looking for. Didn't say Lamborghini wasn't a good car, just wouldn't have done it. And it wouldn't be what we were purchasing on. We were purchasing a mountain car. You have done the same thing, but it's only 3 or 4 things. Only 3 or 4 things pop up as the reasons why a certain thing is true. Right? 3 or 4 things pop up. Why are you married to the person that you are married to? Why did you go to the college that you went to? It's only 3 or 4 things. It's never 10,000 things. And so the next important question for us to know in terms of messaging, why would a buyer care about, and that you don't need 50,000 things. That's 50,000 posts, and that's good to have. But each one of them is supported by just 3 or 4 things. And if you choose the right 3 or 4 things, you've got language that's just gonna, and this is why the soil quality is better if you buy from us. And this is why the blueberries taste better if you buy from us. And this is why we always hire, you know, local kids or whatever. Like this is like, if the farm becomes transparent in its processes, and then the people say, I trust those processes, you will have customers for life, because that's how human beings work. So Troy, why do you drive the car you drive?
Because it fits all my kids.
Huge,
Minivan.
huge, right? That's a huge thing.
Space. You know, when we first got that car, I was hesitant. I was never a guy that wanted a minivan. I don't know why, but and then I can't beat the space. So now it's just one more thing that I have to tell my wife she's correct about.
Awesome. Okay. So here's the other thing that the Kardashians kind of mess up for all of us. People think, well, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, if anybody follows him, says post 4 times a day. Just inundate your audience with, okay. That I'm going to look at your faces. This part is so important. Okay. So the most important thing right now, that was Web 1.0. Like Web 1.0, previous to really the pandemic, you could make a lot of money by making a lot of noise. Kardashians, Vaynerchuk, right? Okay. The whole world is on the web right now. The place is noisy. It's just noisy. You adding 4 posts a week or 4 posts a day, 16 posts a week, not that anybody here would do it, right? Because we're not that bored, but that is just going to add to noise. And that is just going to add to noise. Adding to noise gives you nothing. Adding to somebody's depth of understanding gives you everything. We're no longer competing for attention. We're competing for thoughtfulness. We're competing for thoughtful connection. That the difficulty, right? So it used to be on television, it was expensive. And so there was a filtering mechanism, right? Except there's no filtering mechanism now. Anybody can do this. So if anybody can do this, then the difficulty becomes, how do we separate ourselves? It's not going to be by doing it more and more noisily. It's going to be by doing it more and more deeply with more and more thoughtfulness, because now you're daring your audience to, you're daring your competitors to come down here. All right, big chain grocery store, come on down here and be as thoughtful as I am, which they cannot do because we've spoken about their marketing departments. You will win that battle. You will win that battle all day long if you are thoughtful, because human beings only operate one way. The Neanderthals are coming left, right. That's this is how we make, this is why and how we make decisions, and we make them in language. If you own a credible argument that gives somebody 2 or 3 good reasons for why you are credible, deeply understood inside their attention span, they're coming, we have to choose left or right. You have a business forever. You have a business forever. You are unstoppable. It will work because your buyer is a human being. Everything else is BS. Your buyer is a person, and they will behave like a person if you treat them like a partner in the process.
Now, Brian, you mentioned their attention span. And so I just wanted to share an example that relates to a farm here. And so there's an apiary that we help out in Michigan that reached out to me one time to share a thoughtful message around their apiary and how they can get customers interested in the local honey and other products they do. He sent me the story about why they have the farm and the apiary, why they man the bees and all that. But it came in a story form and it was long and everything, and so I understood like he was coming to me for advice on how he could make it succinct and credible within the short attention span that people have, right? Because even though he's got something great to share, and people would care about it, it's, are they going to overlook it? So can you dive into that a little bit deeper on the succinctness of that credibility? Because I think that's an area, at least personally, I've experienced that farmers have come to me for, is taking their story, their message, their credibility around their farm and really putting it into a short amount of words to really grab the attention so they can build that relationship.
Yeah. So, so I'm going to take ripening on a truck. Is that a good example for this?
Sure.
Sure. Why not? Okay. So there is more nutrition in, I'm just going to, food, forgive me for the bad grammar, in food ripening in the ground, forgive my handwriting, folks, than in a truck. Okay. So that is a conclusion of information. That is something we need to prove. Okay. Now, note when we said, Troy, why do you trust your wife? I mean, let's face it, they've married, they got 4 kids. Like, there are 756,000 reasons why Troy trusts his wife. But he came up with 3 because 3 rose to the top. Number 1 was he trusted her communication, right? Or what we're talking about here, just to prove the point, he trusts her assessment of knowledge, not necessarily her conclusion of it, but her assessment of it, which is what really matters to people. So if you trust your assessment of knowledge, right? So there is, so the question is now, this is a conclusion. Why is this true? So that becomes the next question. So Troy, your brain has already filtered out. There are 856,000 reasons why this is true, but your brain has already filtered toward the top couple. So what are they?
For this example?
Yeah.
Well, because when it's transferring in a truck, it is no longer attached to the ground where the nutrients came from to help it grow. It probably could travel long distances to get there. And it could have been spoiled by other products within that same truck if other things are being transported within.
Okay. Okay. And so, and why does it matter, the long distances?
Because there's research on food that travels a particular amount of miles loses its nutrients, its nutrient dense vitality.
Yep. Great. So there's research that we can quote, and there's no, right. So what we have to do is, inside somebody's attention span, make this argument true. And then the next part is, why does it matter? Okay. This is really only 50 words, right? Like, this is, if we're really, the difficulty that people have with their writing is that they start telling stories, and then they forget that this is a key reason, this is a key reason, and this is a key reason why this is true. And if I got that down in 50 words, and then I talk about why they matter, so now I've got 110 word post right here, plus a good photo that's informative. Those 110 words beat somebody's funny story about, whatever, their horse pooping in a field for, an article. That because they're only going to make information the same way you buy a car, the same way that, right? They're only going to choose that you are credible on certain pieces of information, and these are the key ones. And if you know why those few things are key, you can raise the credibility to the top. And if you raise that credibility to the top, you can do it inside their attention span. And then they say, now I go crazy on this now, folks, forgive me. So you've got me going now, Troy. I go crazy on it. I get really upset now when somebody says I have like an investment opportunity or something. And then they give me like an hour-long webinar. And the first 30 minutes of it is like an introduction to, and I'm like, you've just killed 30 minutes of my life to introduce something that was, if you had curated it down 25 words or 50 words, you've just killed 30 minutes of my life for this. And I think, and when we recognize that every time we write a word, we are stealing somebody's time, then we have this obligation to deliver information to them well. If we don't have that obligation, we don't get the trust from that information, right? This is why writing well matters. I think it's probably the most important skill literally in the history of the world, right? The ability to communicate, the most important skill in the history of the world. And so, and because getting credible information to someone else inside their attention span is the thing that made us us and not Neanderthals and not saber-toothed tigers, right? Like this is evolutionary. And so if we do the process, like just that process that we just did with Troy, what's the thing that we're trying to prove to be true? Blueberries taste better in certain soil. Why is it true? Reasons 1, 2, and 3. Write it up. It's going to take you 15 minutes. People are going to learn. You're going to be respected in the community, right? Like all things, and let everybody else say nothing, which is what most of them do because they're afraid to write, or let everybody else distract. But if you can get credible information inside their attention span, you've got a business. It will work because human beings are buying. Did that answer your question, Troy?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I know that that's something that has at least been top of mind for some farms is I want to write something to share with the audience or to gain attention. Let's even call it, I'm looking to market my CSA package, right? I just came up with, or I'm looking to market my stand at the market. And so how can I do that in the most thoughtful way that actually grabs the audience's attention, those 100 people, those 1,000 people, because what I really want to say is the long-winded story, right? And so I just
Right.
want to dive into that.
Right. And so for that, we do the thinking ahead of time, right? Like it's like your high school outline. We do the thinking ahead of time. What we really end up with are what are the main I'll tell you this story. But this will explain everything to you. I was working with an engineering company last week, and they were putting out a proposal for big water contract, and they said, and I said, okay, so what are the reasons that they're going to make a decision? The people who are giving out the proposal, these reasons. Okay, how many of your competitors have engineering expertise, et cetera, lots of history? They said 90% of them, almost everybody. Okay, how many of them? Almost everybody. How many of them have your relationships with officials so that if things go wrong? None of them. Okay, that's where we focus, right? Like that's where we focus. So where do we make the most credible argument, right? Where do we make the most credible argument? What's the array? What's the array of information that we could be writing about? What's the most important information that somebody says, yes, you're credible. I believe that is a separator. You're going to get the contract. Or yes, I believe that is a viable way to do a CSA. I'm going to give you money. Or that is a viable way to grow blueberries. I'm going to give you money, right? And so the transparency of that process, when you make that visible, people say, yes, I believe that you have made something credible visible. I'm going to give you money. And that's CSAs through engineering watering companies, through why do you drive the car you drive? Why are you married to the person that you're married? Is the way we make decisions, right? What's the most important thing to you? That my kids fit in the car. Great, right? So you should get a minivan, right? And so understanding those movements. What are the key pieces of information that get to support conclusions? I'm gonna try and burn through this fast here, because I don't really want to go much beyond an hour. I think we people start to get a little antsy. So here's the biggest thing. Right, my heart to yours, everybody on this is so misunderstood in business, and it's like, and I don't think this is misunderstood, my sense, in the farming community, because you guys are wiser, I think, than probably 97% of quote business experts. We do not hire companies for what they do, but we do hire their approach. We don't have to agree that Kellen goes to bed at 7:30. We just have to agree that both sides make a credible argument, and then we collectively decide what to do. That wisdom is credible decision making. Wisdom is credible decision making, not pain, not transactions, not et cetera. When your clients think you approach your business wisely, you will have clients for life. And in your space, in the farm space, my sense is everybody is forced, because of margins, because everyone is forced to approach their business wisely. And yet we tend probably not to market that way. So this is a system to me that works incredibly well inside of this space. There's a lot of thoughtfulness going on. We just have to make it clear. We just have to make it apparent, right? That's the gap right now. Is not that the farmer isn't contributing, not the farmer doesn't have good processes, not the farmer doesn't have better food. It's none of that stuff. It's simply that the buyer doesn't know it. Great. Well, let's handle that then, right? Let's tell the buyers about it. And things are going to move pretty quickly. They don't hire us for what they do, right? You deliver blueberries, so does Kroger, but yours are better. They're hiring you for your approach, right? And they're even going to pay more for it, for your approach, because it's your approach. We just have to tell them about it. Okay. And so we've done this. And I think I'm going to skip really much of this other stuff, because it kind of goes over stuff that have come up in conversation, and we don't need to get, I think, into the like copywriting manipulation stuff, because my sense is that we're not talking to a very manipulative oriented audience. It tends to come up in other audiences, but I think, and then this is the last thing that I would say, and maybe this is the best place to stop, is most people, when they approach a market in any way, they immediately start thinking about who's going to buy today. If I spend $1 on advertising, who's going to buy today so that I can get that dollar back? And that makes sense, of course. The problem is, if we language it as if we were only selling to the people who are willing to buy today, then we're probably pissing off 97% of the market. And that's the Robert Kiyosaki thing. That's, oh, you missed out, our sale is over, oh, don't worry, right? It's that kind of language that really sort of bothers people. I unsubscribe from it. You don't want a lot of people to unsubscribe from it. And so what do we do? I'm happy to write you today in an email that lets you know that we've been approaching pesticides in a different way this year. Or I'm happy to write you today, right? And that goes out once a month or whatever. And so approach your business. If you approach your buyer like they are a partner in your business and you are looking to serve them, there will be a benefit to that relationship. And it is a relationship. It is not a transaction. And that's very sort of different than the language that ends up being used a lot. Okay. The last thing I'll say here, and maybe Troy will be good enough to drop my email into the chat there. But if I could help anybody with, you want a 15-minute discussion about how to place your market, your farm in a market, or you think this is interesting, but you want to do more conversations about it, or whatever, please, Troy can drop my email in. I'm happy. There's a space on my website, which is thinkdeeplywriteclearly.com, that you can go to and book a 10-minute call or something with me. But I strongly support what Harris Seeds, what Troy, what the people on this do. I strongly support what you do. You literally feed us, and it's wildly important that you do that. So if I can contribute to you in any way, I would be honored to do that. And I hope this was thoughtful. And I think we can probably take, if there are questions, Troy, I think we can probably take some time. People are willing to hang around.
Yeah, you had a couple questions. So Jenny is wondering. So we titled this session as "Learning to Adapt and Execute in Any Market." And so, can you kind of wrap that into what you talked about with the credibility and how you message it? To build that relationship. So, can you kind of wrap that into how that applies to any market? To her question, and then you've got a couple more here about, should you put pricing in post when you're writing, does price scare people away or anything like that? Or if you have any insights on that.
So pricing is, I'm going to share the screen here for a second. Pricing is interesting. There's a famous book called Predictably Irrational, which talks about anchor pricing, right? And so what that is when somebody offers you a price, you kind of don't know where it's coming from, right? And what if you really think about money, it's all kind of made up, right? Money's kind of a made up fiction that we all believe in, and it's good. It serves us. It's why we believe in it. But it's real. Money is a piece of paper, right? And if you go crypto, it's not even that, right? It's a piece of blockchain. It's a piece of computer code, is what it is. And so money is really sort of made up. And so people, right? So I bought this bottle of water in an Atlantic City hotel. And if you know anything about hotels, right? On the New York City street, this is 99 cents. In a hotel, it's $7.99, right? And what do you pay? You pay the thing that it's worth in the environment it is worth it in, right? And so the real trick around pricing is not what does it cost, but what does it cost in the environment what's the cost in the environment that establishes its value? Okay. And you show that with anchor pricing. So blueberries are normally, $4.99. That is now an anchor price. We use organic. We have better soil. We have, right? Ours is $4.89. Now, I don't know if that is a good price or a bad price, but we just said, right? Kroger has this at $4.99. Ours are organic and better for you, and we have them at $4.89. I don't know if that's a good price or a bad price, but the same thing would work at $10.99 and $9.99. If you tell this story right here, they will buy $9.99 all day long. And so it's really just a question of, is this number in context to its environment? And if it's in context to its environment, you can charge whatever you want. At which point, so that the question is really, do we detail environment? And the answer is, if you can do it quickly, effectively inside someone's attention span, and it works for you, and you think it'll make somebody call you or visit you, do it. If it's not going to make somebody call you or visit you, don't do it, right? And so it's probably decision by decision. It's probably choice by choice. But if that good price is a reason that somebody would come and visit you, then use it. Absolutely do that. Okay. And in terms of the market question, Troy, I wonder if you could help me sort of frame that. Was there something that I was supposed to have done here tonight that I didn't do that I should probably take on now?
No, I think what we were trying to capture maybe in the title was that there's a lot of change going on, right, with the economic impacts and the pandemic. And so tonight's was about thoughtful messaging to help you kind of engage with that audience, right? Actually, not be a part of the noise of the entire world being online, using Instagram, Facebook, or whatever your social media feed is. And so we wanted to give you guys thoughtful messaging to actually think through building that credibility without all the distractions surrounding it, and really interact with your customers. And so maybe that person was looking for maybe a summary of what we covered. I'm not sure, of what are some key points that you could really drive home that people walk away with today, that if they did this tomorrow, just incrementally, very small, it would really help their business out, especially if they're following the 2 to 3 posts a week online.
Right. And honestly, I wouldn't even necessarily start at 2 or 3 because that might be overwhelming.
Sure.
But once a week, whatever consistency is right now for you, even if it's once a month right now, great. Right. As long as it's making a deep impact. I think when we talk about trading different markets, I think that's probably the biggest thing that we discussed in terms of, other than strategy of how to do it, in terms of why to do it. I think what is very meaningful to me right now, and we find this all day long in our own business. I know you find it in yours, Troy, that when we are thoughtful, the phone rings. We don't have to be noisy. We have to be thoughtful. And that takes time to do it, but literally people are buying the credibility of the thought. They're buying. And so I think that is particularly true in pandemic, right? I think if we're going to say the market has changed in the pandemic, I think that's true. I think your Facebook pixels, your Facebook ads, your, all the funnel pages and stuff, I'm over them. I mean, I don't know about other people here. I think I probably shouldn't say that because I think there's probably people who maybe talked about some of those things on here before. But personally, when I see like a ClickFunnels page or one of those things at this point, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with a 45-minute webinar, which is 40 minutes of sales and 5 minutes of actual value. Just give me the 5 minutes of the actual value, and over time I will trust you, and then I will hire you. And so to me, I do think the world is heading that way. I know the world is heading that way because it's what we hear, right? We hear all day long. The 10% of the buyers that we all want, the people who are going to buy more expensive blueberries, the people who are going to travel out to farmers market, the 10% of the buyers that we all want don't want to buy with methods that make them feel stupid, right? They don't want to buy with Robert Kiyosaki messaging. They want to buy with thoughtful messaging. And I do think that is true now. And if you look 5 years ahead, the only people who are surviving are the thoughtful people, because it's just too darn noisy. But I can see people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on messaging that does not work, and processes that do not work if it is not thoughtful 5 years from now. I know that will happen. And so I don't know if that answers the question entirely, but I do think there's a shift inside of, we are so inundated with content that the separator in content, the separator in messaging is now going to be thoughtfulness. It's literally, the Neanderthals are coming. Do we go left? Do we go right? We have to make an argument for why we're thinking through this well, so that we can team together and make the right decisions in our society, in our economy, and everything else. And I think that's going to become more and more clear as time moves on. Are there other questions?
Yeah, there's a couple more. One other thought too. So let's say you post 3 or 4 times on social media today of your farm. Maybe it's farm pictures and everything, just beautiful pictures of your farm and growing it. Would you suggest, based on what we learned tonight, that if it takes more time to write a thoughtful message, than doing 1 or 2 posts that are actually very thought-provoking, very credible to reach the audience that is going to make a decision versus putting pictures out there that maybe just generates likes.
Mhm. Well, I think I don't. My sense is that's probably somebody's specific question, and I want to sort of invite that person to call me and we can speak more directly. But here's the high end answer, the sort of broad based answer for everybody on the call. If it is working, then I think there's reason to continue it and then add this to it. My guess is it's not working. My guess is, and now I don't know the photographer. I really know nothing right now. I mean, if it's really Ansel Adams photography and people are loving it and they're saying, wow, that is like stunningly amazing stuff. And every time I see your stuff, it makes me just want to run over to the farm and buy corn or something, then keep doing it. Like that sounds fantastic if it's true. But if it's creating noise, I can't imagine that the noise is going to work more thoughtfully than thoughtfulness. So now what's the right ratio? Are there a certain number of people who are being driven by etc. But I would either add this to it and kind of A/B test it. But my sense is they're asking the question because the results are not there, and we've seen that 130,000 times. That's common, that people think if I inundate the market, it's going to result in sales and people thinking a certain way about us. And inundating the market tends not to do that unless it's done through, when the Neanderthals are coming, do we go left or right? That's why we make decisions. And so my sense is it's not working, but I really don't know in that specific case.
The next question is around discounting. If should you offer a discount for certain price points customers meet, let's say 10%, if you spend 200, what type of message does that send? Is that still an appropriate thing to use?
I do think it's appropriate if your price is high enough that you are serving your customer, not manipulating them, right? And that to me, that's the big difference, right? So if I'm trying to manipulate you, if I'm trying to get you in the door with a discount, first of all, it doesn't do me any good, right? Because all I've done, this was the big mistake of Groupon, right? Like all the Groupon people, right? So they say, all the Groupon people say, I'm going to go try the new tequila bar or whatever it is, and then they all get a Groupon. They get a night out of tequilas for $20 a piece or something. Well, they never go back to the tequila bar, right? Because they see the tequila bar as a discount place, right? They see it as a place where it's not worth paying full price. And so you definitely don't want to leave in your customer's mind that you are not worth your full price. Now, if at a certain price point you say, thank you so much, you are a valued customer, and I want to give back to you as out of respect for you, not out of manipulation for you, then I think that's credible.
Okay. Just two more here. Does a thoughtful message in social media equal a call to action? And it also says, and call to action referring to act on the social media message itself.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. And what a great question. And I probably should have covered it. So thank you. I'm sorry, maybe some people dropped off, but for those of you who are left, high five to that person. Yes, have a call to action. A call to action simply means do something else. It doesn't have to be salesy, right? That's where everybody messes it up. Click here to get 10% off. That's a mistake. But click here to learn more. Please download this thing that is valuable, which is also thoughtful, is going to help, right? But create a relationship through your call to actions, right? And so if you're interested in learning more about our practices at Troy Farms, click here for why we approach things the way they do, or if you're interested, right? And so absolutely give them a place to go. And of course, after one or two more of those, here's the map to our place, here's how you order online, here's right, like absolutely, absolutely. But what has happened, the same thing that happens with, you know, Troy, why did you marry your wife or buy the car that you bought or anything else? By the time they get to the one where you're pitching them, you have their trust, right? So the trick of all those other call to actions is to establish that trust, not to establish a sales pitch. But yes, fabulous question, and absolutely you should have a series of steps that somebody goes through so that you can continue to prove your trustworthiness to them.
Okay. And then last one's a little different. Colin is asking, do you have any advice for out-of-country farmers? And that the mentality for farming can be different across countries. There may or may, I believe Colin said he's from the Caribbeans, somewhere in the Caribbean. I believe there may be even participants from Canada. And so does the country matter? And any of the messaging approaches that we talked to tonight, I'm guessing is where the question is coming from, or how could that be interpreted differently? Oh, Colin's from the Dominica, he said.
Good for him. Well, I don't know the culture, but I think not, right? Because humans are humans are humans are humans. I'm Canadian, so it certainly is the same in Canada. But it's really sort of the same, right? Like that's one thing we learned in our business. It doesn't really matter if our client is from Australia or Europe or, you know, New York City. That people are people are people, and we're bothered by the same things, and we buy on the same things, and we're just, people are people. And the internet culture is strangely the same. Like I mean, it's not strange, but it really is. It's not like there's an internet for you know, Puerto Rico and for, right, it's the same internet, it's the same, it's Gary Vaynerchuk in both places, right? It's the same thing. And so I think probably everything we're talking about would transfer, but absolutely, if that person wants to have a specific call about it, I'm happy to, you know, hop on the phone and chat about it for 10 minutes. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Brian mentioned earlier that he would love to help anybody that's attending on this call or anybody that watches this after the fact. And so we will make sure that we provide Brian's email address when the email goes out with the recorded call. Expect that to come from Harris Seeds. I could chat it in the box here, but because we're going to be ending the webinar, I'm not sure how effective that will be for you or for many of the people that have left. So we'll go ahead and we'll provide that to you after tonight's call. I don't see any other questions for now. We do have a few other participants hanging on. So if you have questions as we close up, please send those through and we will make sure that we get those answered. But thank you, Brian, so much for coming on, man, and talking about messaging, especially now that we've transitioned from, you know, start your own farm, grow your own farm with Michael Kilpatrick. Then we dived into selling online with Chris and Local Line. This was really about diving in deeper to, now that you have an online presence, how can you be credible and thoughtful in the messaging to reach your audience? And so thanks for covering those in-depth ways of
Well,
truly transparent.
thank you, Trey. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to just get it in again. Thank you and Kendall and Harris Seeds for putting this together, and thank everybody who's hung out here for an hour and 15 minutes to have a chat with the three of us here tonight. Just really appreciate sort of the quality of the conversation and from everybody involved. So thank you both to Troy and Farmbridge and Kendall at Harris Seeds and to everybody on the call.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Thank you, everybody. Please do check out the last session in the series, which is part 4, lean farming. That's something that I'll actually be leading, and it's to really provide you principles for process improvement on your farm. And so what could we help you reduce cost, reduce waste, and drive profitability on the processes on your farm. So thanks again for all your support, and we look forward to the last session next Tuesday night.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll just hang out a few minutes just to see if somebody pops a question in there.
Okay.
Grace, I see your question. Do you have a recording of this? Yes, absolutely. Every session that we've had through this masterclass series is recorded, and you can actually watch them on Harris Seed's YouTube channel. And so it'll be posted probably within a matter of a few days, as well as all the other sessions if you didn't get a chance to check out the other two. Tom is saying, you say post, where am I posting? And so Tom, I'm going to guess that maybe your question is relating to which platform should you be using when you're sharing messaging. And so that has to be something maybe that you dive into and figure out what works best for you and the community that you have. I can tell you that Instagram and Facebook seem to be the most popular used by farms to engage with their audience, maybe even Twitter. And so if you don't have any of those accounts today, it may take looking into what that looks like, how you get set up, and how you could start using it. But there are other platforms out there that we didn't cover today that could always be a possibility. I know Brian mentioned LinkedIn. That's always an exploratory one that we didn't get to cover today, but one that I would love to explore in the future because I know it may be thought as a business platform that is not for farming, because I know there's a few agricultural people on there, companies on there, but I typically see, and I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, that there's not many farms on LinkedIn. And so that's an area to explore. But Tom, if that doesn't answer your question, please jump in and let us know what your thoughts are when you mean posting. But I believe what Brian was talking about would really relate to social media. It could relate to a newsletter that you send out, whether that's handwritten or emailed. It could be email list for your customers. It could even be a nice shareable card at your stand at the market or wherever too. So it really could be anywhere.
That's right. That's right.
Sorry, Brian, I kind of jumped in and stole that
No,
question.
you got it. It was perfect. Well done. Hey, Troy, I'm just going to step away for.
Yeah, you're fine. It looks like we have just a few people on, so we're gonna. Okay, I don't see a lot of questions coming in, so we're going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you, everybody, for the comments and the questions today again, and we will see you next week.